Hello everybody and welcome to the third practice video where we'll do some more problems with logarithms. So in the first question we're asked to simplify some expressions by giving the answer as a number without any logs in it. So for part A, the first thing we want to do is to move the 3 that's in front of the second term. And to do that we use the third rule, so it becomes log to base 3 of 2 to the power 3. Which is log to base 3 of 8. Now we can use the second rule to condense this further, and the first term is positive and the second and the third term are negative. So the first one goes on the top and the second and third go on the bottom, so we get log to base 3 of 144 divided by 8 times 6. And that gives us log to base 3 of 3. And as we know, the log of any number to the same base is equal to 1. So the final answer is 1. Now for part B, we don't have any coefficients in front of the logarithmic terms. So we can go straight away and use rule 1 and rule 2 to simplify it. So we have log to base 5. The first two terms are positive. So we have 500 and 1/10 on the top. And the last term is negative. So we have 2/5 on the bottom. So after tidying up the fractions a bit, we end up with log to base 5 of 2,500 over 20, which is log to base 5 of 125. And we know to get rid of the log function completely, we need to get log to base 5 of 5, so it becomes 1. So can we put 5 to some power that gets to 125? Well, we know 5 squared is 25, but 5 cubed is 125. So we can rewrite this as log to base 5 of 5 cubed. Then we can use rule 3 to bring the exponent down in front of the log, and the log of 5 to base 5 becomes 1, so the answer is 3. The first thing we need to do with part C is move the 2 in front of the first term, so that becomes log to base 3 of 54 squared, and the 4 in front of the last term, so that becomes log to base 3 of 2 to the power 4. After working out those numbers, we can then use rule 2 to get log to base 3 of 2,916 divided by 1/4 times 16. This gives us log to base 3 of 729. And as we know that log to base 3 of 3 is going to equal 1, we have to try and find out a number that we can put 3 to the power of that is equal to 729. Now if we look at a few exponents of 3, we'll find out that 3 to the power 6 is equal to 729. So we now have log to base 3 of 3 to the power 6. So now we can use rule 3 to bring the exponent down in front of the logarithm. So we get 6 log to base 3 of 3. And as we know, log to base 3 of 3 is equal to 1. So the answer is 6. The next question also asks us to simplify some expressions and give the answer as a number with no logs in it. So the last term in part A has a coefficient 5 in front of the log. So the first thing we're going to do is move that to be the exponent of 2. Then we're going to use rule 1 on the first two terms because they're added together. So we get log to base 8 of 4 times 16. Then we have one log subtracted from the other, so we use rule 2 to get log to base 8 of 64 divided by 32, which is log to base 8 of 2. And at this point, I'm going to show you two different ways to work this out. With the first method, you don't need to memorize anything. And as you now know, to eliminate the logs from the answer, we need to get log to base 8 of 8, so it reduces to 1. This means we need to get 8 to the power of something to equal 2. So how do we do that? Well, if we start off by saying 2 to the power of what is equal to 8, we can see that 2 to the power of 3, or 2 cubed, is equal to 8. So if we cube root both sides, the cube root and the cube will cancel out, just giving 2. So we end up with the cube root of 8 is equal to 2. And just as with a square root, instead of writing square root, you can write the exponent of a half. Well, you can do the same with a cubed root, but the exponent is a third. So we now have 8 to the power a third is equal to 2. So now we can substitute that back into the log, and then we can move the third in front of the logarithm to give a third log to base 8 of 8. and the log to base 8 of 8 cancels out because it becomes 1, so the answer is a third. Now the second method to work this out is to use another logarithmic rule, where log to base b of a is equal to 1 over log to base a of b. So our log to base 8 of 2 becomes 1 over log to base 2 of 8. And now, because we're in base 2, we want to try and get 8 as 2 to the power something. And as we know, 2 cubed is equal to 8. So if we substitute that back in and then move the exponent 3 in front of the log, we get 1 over 3 log to base 2 of 2. And as we know, log to base 2 of 2 is equal to 1. So again, the answer is a third. And in part B, we again first use rule 3 to move the coefficients in front of the first two terms to become exponents. So with the second term, the square root and the squared will now cancel out. And then we use rule 2 to give us log to base 3 of 16 over 4 times 3 times 12, which is 16 over 144, which is log to base 3 of 1 over 9. Now 1 over 9 is the same as writing 9 to the power minus 1. So if we write log to base 3 of 9 to the minus 1, we can then use rule 3 to move the minus 1 in front of the log, and we get minus log to base 3 of 9. And as we're in base 3, we now want to try and express 9 as 3 to the power of something. Well, 3 squared is 9, so that becomes minus log to base 3 of 3 squared. Then we can use rule 3 again to move the 2 in front of the log, and we get minus 2 log to base 3 of 3. And as log to base 3 of 3 is 1, it is effectively cancelled out, so the answer is minus 2. So that's it for this video. Please smash that like button if it's helping, I'd appreciate it. And please press subscribe to receive more videos like this, and I hope to see you soon.